All right, so most of you people on these apps know me through the service. What's up, Miss Monster? How you doing, girl? The residential service end that I mostly show, because that's all I pretty much get. But this right here is where my cherry was popped, in the commercial industries. So let's hear the story on why I went from commercial to residential, mostly service. Some of you are going to be like, why is there a well pump in this situation? And we'll get to that later in this week. There's a bulk storage tank for makeup water, and we're going to use that tank to pull water and feed these units. Now, believe it or not, I actually got to bid this project due to the social media content that I put out. So everybody who thinks that this is a waste of time, it really isn't. So on top of the money that the apps pay me to post, I also get some good work out of it too. I went to school with the head of facilities, and he reached out to me through Facebook Messenger, and I took a trip down, and here we are now, a month later, installing the project. So, FYI, it's a supply and return line from a chiller feeding 2 pieces of equipment that will be making and processing Slim Duck. I also ran out of Unistrut washers while we were here, so if you see some missing, it's because I ran out. Next time I show up, I'll have some more for the comment section. But why did I go from commercial to residential? Well, here we are. So, back in the early 2000s, Mrs. Monster was able to save a pretty penny for us together while we had no kids at that time. And we were able to purchase our first home. And then the children started. The only way to get a raise these days is if you go in there and ask for it. And in order to get a raise, you got to be able to climb the ladder. So that's what I did. I got my license 2009, 2010, I believe. And I got into a service commercial van at that point because that was my next step to getting more money so I can feed the kids. And all was well. I mean, we weren't getting anything extra out of life. We were just pretty much paying the bills and moving forward. Because believe it or not, commercial actually takes up a lot of your time. You're getting paid for 40 hours, but I was actually traveling a good 10 to 12 hours a week on top of that I wasn't getting paid. Now, I also knew that I couldn't afford an extra car. We had one car that was reliable, and that was for her and the kids to get around. And if I wanted to get myself another vehicle, it had to at least make it for an hour drive there and back without breaking down. So I knew that I had to somehow get into a company vehicle, whether it was a van or a truck, whatever it took. So that's what I was able to do. But once you get a vehicle, you don't really get the money in your check anymore because they consider that a raise. So we're still just, cruising through life at this point. And then we had twins. And the house wasn't big enough for twins, so we had to get a bigger house. We had to sell the other one, which was not too bad because we bought it in 2010 and sold it 7 years later. And, It was going all right for about a year after we sold that house. And then I noticed that with 4 kids, a house of 6, trying to feed them, and formula was $400 a month, that just working 40 hours a week wasn't going to cut it. So it started getting to the point where we were like, on Wednesday, checking to see if we could even get a coffee at that point. And I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what. So that's when I started working at night, taking on some extra calls, and at first, it was all flip houses, and then once I started doing the flip houses and using the Facebook to get my name out there to everybody that I knew that I was actually doing plumbing on the side, I did some service calls, and I started to figure out at the end of about 8 months that I've actually made the same amount of money at night and weekends than I did working my 40 hours. I call it 52 hours. I also wasn't around much that year because I was trying to generate enough work to get my name out there to jump. So at the end of that year, Mrs. Monster told me to either slow down or make the leap. So the moral of the story is sometimes it doesn't matter what you're putting in for pipe. It just matters what you're bringing home to put on the table. And I hang my head high knowing that I'm able to walk into a 5-story building and build that sucker. I can go into 10 units with just an architectural drawing and build that sucker. Or I can go into your sister's bathroom and rip out her shower valve. We're going to be tying that chiller in as soon as the extra parts come in. And it is extremely stressful, so back in October, Mrs. Monster started bringing me to the gym with her because and it honestly helped. It wipes your mind clear of everything you got going on just for that 1 hour. And not to mention, selling shirts isn't too bad either. So these hats, 20 of them on the website next time it's open, 30packjack.com.